Hello everyone, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan, thank you for coming to the channel. So how about this swarm of black fire endlers, all males, maybe about 15 of them, give or take, in this cube aquarium, 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. I forget the exact gallons, I'm thinking 7. Very common shape and size. This is UNS's version of the 30 centimeter cube aquarium. And what I did with it was create an Iwagumi aquascape, which is a wonderful Japanese form of aquascaping, even art, loosely translated to rock formation, Iwagumi. And so the aquarium, the way you would aquascape it would be to use stone and a minimal amount of plants, but lots of what few you do choose to create carpets on different levels of the tank, sometimes separating the rock or going in between it. And that's what I've done. I'm using Sirius stone, classic, all-time favorite in the hobby. And I'm trying to find different angles because in some respects it reminds me of the iconic Mount Rushmore scene with the faces cut into the rock. And before a lot of these plants, you had one face there with that grin, another one there with that grin, and then behind that Anubias petite, and then another one at the corner there. So I was very much reminded of that when I built this rock formation, and I continue to really be pleased with that massive looking, or at least the sense of a massive cliff right there, an underhang. And we're really only talking about a few gallons in a little water box here, but that's one of the cool things you could do when you play with perspective. You play with stone, you use depth of field and different techniques to enhance the depth. And in some ways I broke the rules, and in some ways I maintained them. The ways I maintained them was no wood is in this aquarium and no stem plants. Well, that's not true. That's pearlweed back there, but I'm using it essentially like I would Monte Carlo or any carpeting plant. I just cut it constantly so that it more or less matches the height of the rocks in front of it. And then I have all sorts of Anubias petite colonies growing in between the nooks and crannies. I bet it would even look better if there was less, or if I trimmed some of that. It's getting a bit unruly. And then my favorite effect, using Halanthium tellum, basically a microsword, as a carpeting plant in the front. I just pulled a bunch of these little plantlets from one of my other aquariums, and it didn't take long at all before they just became as lush as any hair grass carpet I've ever seen, and way easier to maintain. Way easier, and not nearly as sloppy or messy when you are maintaining it. This aquarium's been up for gotta be 3 months now, and the only thing I've cut is the pearlweed in the back. I haven't given a single trim to this, and look at how uniform and beautiful it is, staying true. So keep that in mind, folks. I have an ONF Nano light here, which is a pretty terrific light. It looks cool too. It doesn't have a massive color spectrum. It mostly skews white, but that's fine given a new Iwagumi in some respects is monochromatic, in that there's like 2 color schemes, the rock and the plants, and that the plants are almost always shades of green. So green and gray is what I meant by monochromatic. And then of course the fish themselves, Now, I just was captivated by this specific type of Endler, and because the guy I got it from, they were breeding so true to him. The progeny, the generations always grew up, almost without exception, to look just like all these fish. And some of these are my F1 or first generation, and some are the adults I got from that breeder here at a fish swap in Chicago. And I'm finding that to be true. Now there's a couple in here that the black is not as intense, and there's no way I can try to move an iPhone around to try to capture that, but you might be seeing them as I talk, that if this were some sort of beauty contest, they would fall down the scale. But in general, if you're having a female Endler give birth, you're not going to get such a uniform color palette in the fry. As a matter of fact, some Endlers, even within their own species, the colors vary significantly, and that's beautiful. Some of the variations on the black bar Endler and so many others. Now, I'd stayed away from guppies and Endlers because of their prolific nature. You know, once you have them, it's kind of the genie in the bottle. You can't let it out. But I made an exception for these guys, and I did just keep males in here. So while I have some females in other aquariums, which I may live to regret, in here it's just males. When I first set this aquarium up, and with any Iwagumi, you always have to worry, especially worry about algae, because you're not using floating plants or stem plants to mitigate the algae. And when you have rocks up this close to the light without all that other strategy for algae, you're very likely to get it. So I put in an inordinate amount of snails, including 4 white mystery snails and a bunch of different neorites, mostly the smaller horn neorite, and different variations, but not the big striped zebra neorites, because I didn't want all their white spot eggs everywhere. And you can see the snails. I'm pointing, there's a beautiful one up there. There's one there. That strategy really worked. I hardly got any algae. I should also say I put in a bunch of Neocaridina shrimp. There's one there. A lot of just creatures. There's a bunch of ram's horns too. Those just find their way in there. But there's a bunch of cherry shrimp and all the color variants that go with that. And that strategy really worked. So the snails plus the invertebrates was enough. And then once the carpets really started doing what they do, in particular the pearlweed back here, I mean, then it starts to more and more become a cycle tank, and the plants are able to absorb the nutrients that would come with a aqua soil like this one. I used only UNS aqua soil, not even a cap. And so that's going to release nutrients plus the light, plus rocks being close to the top of the water. That was a formula for algae, and it is for a lot of people who do this aquascape style. And so what I did really worked. Snails and vertebrates, and obviously a lot of water changes in the beginning. And I didn't get algae. I mean, I've seen it, but I also saw the snails and the shrimp right on it, doing what they do. You can see that going on right there on the face of that rock. One of each. Well, actually a few of each. And there's this ram's horn riding a mystery snail. Nature's awesome. I did not use Coreodoras. I could have put pygmy cories in here, and I still might. And I did not use Otocinclus. Now those are 2 creatures that I often do use, especially in nano tanks, because they're small, relatively hardy, and they do perform a service. And so there's so much upside to them. But I wanted to try to keep this as minimalistic as possible with just that one species of fish and 3 species of plant and one rock type. And that's what I did. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. If you have any questions or comments, do not hesitate to ask. And as always, folks, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.